Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
If you like listening to Simplified, you must listen to other IVM productions like On Course, an excellent podcast for getting information on foreign education and getting you there. New episodes out every Monday. Check it out on the various podcasting apps and on the IVM podcast app as well. Hello and welcome to Simblified, the podcast where we take complex concepts that affect the world and break them down for you with puns, poor jokes and really obscure Wodehouse references. I'm Srikeit.
I'm Chuck.
I'm Naren. And I'm like the character Galahad in most Wodehouse comics. I keep getting thrown out of bars at very late at night.
Galahad also said that he was fit at a very old age, and it was said that he said that he used to get by on a steady, healthy diet of alcohol and
never sleep before 7 in the
never
morning.
sleep. Correct.
Yeah. So all that has changed now. I'm on the wagon. I'm teetotaler. And you can see the
no
glow.
wonder you be
Little halo. Yeah, if you darken the lights in the studio, you can actually see the halo behind me. And because from time to time, when we run out of meaningful content to talk about, we go against the credo of Simplified.
Ultra-crepidarianism.
That is talking about topics that we have no clue about, which is actually such a lovely thing to do.
Yeah.
And we invite people who are actually much smarter and wiser than
Again, not a very difficult task.
Yeah, that's not very difficult. But this time I think we've really got someone who's much smarter and much wiser.
Someone who has a rare claim of having been the boss of 66.67% of this podcast.
Yeah. And someone who describes himself as producer, cinema aficionado and shorts enthusiast whose curiosity is far larger than his body mass. So we today have Dharam Valia, co-founder and producer at Hungry Films. Welcome, Dharam.
Hello, everybody.
I can actually attest to the shorts enthusiast
I'm
part.
sound wise and all. Soon this voice will give away.
So I can actually attest to the shorts enthusiast part because I remember when I had come to interview at Ogilvy with Dharam, I was nervous as hell. I was wearing this crisp formal t-shirt, crisp formal shirt, trousers and even polished shoes. And then Dharam just walks in his bright t-shirt and like cargo shorts and like chappals and stuff. And like we stand there for a couple of seconds in nervous silence and like I chuckle and say that I may have slightly overdressed now. And
that makes it two of us. When my Ogilvy interview also was interviewed by a person in shorts.
Wow. I think that's the modus operandi of like getting you in place for how the things are going to pan
Tips
out.
on how to get through.
Yeah, because when you've been around in advertising long, you know that life is going to be a little screwed up anyway. So might as well be a bit comfortable while all that.
Basically, we'll get the fans of you.
Also the fact that you're going to be gharib, so you might as well wear as little kapda as possible.
Yeah. And at Ogilvy they switch off the AC at 8, so you might as well be in loose, comfortable clothing.
Absolutely.
Meanwhile, just to avoid this becoming an Ogilvy bashing session, let's move on to Dharam. And Dharam, you are the producer and co-founder of Hungry Films. And you guys work on ad films. So what can you tell us a bit about what an ad film producer does?
It's complicated and it's very simple both in the same time. Ad film producer, just like any other producer, he just makes things happen. So ultimately it's your job to make things happen. Whatever shit or love is being thrown your way, you just need to sort of mix it all together and get the job done.
I think we should just clarify a little bit about what ad films exactly are. So basically, television commercials, digital films as well?
Yeah, nowadays pretty much everything. The screens popping out from every little...
Yeah.
Trying to sell you things.
Let's not say the word, but... and every platform. But there's lots of content being made, being watched, being consumed, being shared, being forwarded, being memed. So content creators are really trying their best to do interesting stuff, and that's where we come in. So just sort of relevant content is the relevant sort of word to put in here, but ultimately we are ad filmmakers, and that's what we do. We make commercials. Me along with my partner Vijay Sawant, we make commercials, and we work with ad agencies like Ogilvy and McCann and so on and so forth, and we partner with them and sort of execute what they bring to us.
So, I mean, So let's just go back to the fundamental of what in your opinion is the fundamental difference between films and ad films?
It's the process is pretty much the same. Every step of the process is pretty much the same. It is just about, in fact, I would argue it's a little, sometimes some projects can get a little tougher than actually feature films as well. There are some projects we worked on wherein we worked on about 5-6 months on one particular project, one commercial, which could be whatever, 40, 50 seconds ultimately. But we've spent 6 months of our time working on it from where it started to where it ended up. So it's as I said, the process between ads and feature films, both are the same. Everything, all the elements that you require, all the components you require of filmmaking are the same. It becomes a little complicated and tedious when it comes to advertising because time is a critical factor. Time in terms of trying to make your story work in a particular time period, and also trying to put together the entire production and deliver it within a time period.
Oh, so
it's like a pretty much a double barrel gun pointing both ways.
I'd heard about popular music that there are people who write popular music on a professional level. So all these guys, Michael Jackson, or I don't know what Michael Jackson, but all these, whoever, Laura Branigan, water, I don't know. So they have professional people who write hooks. So apparently the first few bars of the song have to catch the guy or the girl and the listener basically. And only then will he or she listen to the song. That's how it becomes.
Yeah, I've heard some planners do that job.
Yeah.
I know. Make the first couple of slides pop.
No, but what you're saying is right.
So do you also need to worry about the hook? Because a lot of ads I see on the YouTube now, they're so interesting that I end up watching the ads instead of the video that I wanted to watch because I just haven't seen it before. So
it is, so what happens is many a times, and that's where the creativity and the art of filmmaking comes into play, is you understand the technology and the medium and what it allows, but ultimately it is a tool, and like all tools, what you apply to it is what makes the output special. So many a times what the agency comes up and sends us the script per se pretty much sort of evolves into something else by the time we have a conversation.
So the final product is often not the script at all.
Is often pretty much is, I would say, let me use a planning term, augmented. And so the final product is always a little there are variations and builds, and Srikeit, these references are for you, that happen on the script, right? So I would say it's the same flesh but different body, right?
Wow.
Where it started off.
Well put.
So, I mean, specifically if I were to ask, I mean, so there are, as far as the ad film company is concerned, there is the two most important roles are the director and the producer. Now, you're the producer, and what specifically does this guy do? Because I ask because I first saw the word producer in some random movies credits, and I asked my mom when I was a kid, and I asked my mom what this guy does. She replies, he manages the money, which made perfect sense because a lot of these guys were Gujaratis. So, you wouldn't happen to be Gujarati, would you?
I am.
Excellent. So, what exactly does this producer guy do?
A producer guy is actually a feature film producer and an advertising film producer. Both of them are pretty different in that sense, right? Because feature films work in a way wherein you need to source the money, right, and then make the production, right. So a large part of the feature film producer's job is really to try and get the moolah in. Right, and budgeting and so on and so forth, right? So those left brain jobs, if I may say, they still are an integral component of what a producer does. But in an advertising producer, really, I mean, that's what at least my personal experience has been, because I'm not from a film background or I've not studied film production. I've just sort of dived deep into it. straight from advertising is really to try and use and apply your right brains a bit to try and how to make this journey of 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks that we spend on a project seamless enough, interesting enough, and also creatively fertile so that the people who are involved, because there are a lot of creative people involved in while making while executing an ad film, right? Unlike feature film, really there's the writer and the director, right? Who are and knowing how Bollywood works, the writer is possibly never much there. It's pretty much the director who's the creative brains and who's running the show. In an ad film, there are lots of creative stakeholders as such, right? There's a agency. Creative directors, there is a director who's actually making the commercial. So there are lots of brains, right?
The brand team themselves.
The brand team and so on. So the agency and the client will have a point of view, and all of them are interesting and intriguing at times. But really, it's the producer's job to sort of make sure that this sort of circus act follows, this train sort of is running on time, and how to creatively compartmentalize different bogies so that things don't crash into each other.
The client will have a point of view which will be intriguing is the most understated statement I have ever heard.
I love clients. I love clients. I've always had great clients.
So here, as a complete outsider, because I work in manufacturing, so I have absolutely no clue of how this entire thing works. Obviously, when you're shooting a film, okay, you got a brief, let's say your new brand of soap or something like that, and the brand people have an idea of how it should be positioned, and you go over it with your creative people, and you come up with something which is different because you think that it will be much more impactful because of all these things. It's really short, it has to, and you do it. And your client doesn't have a clue till he or she or they see it on in the final version or in a semi-finished version. So there will be a step. So you'll make a story, you'll shoot the script, you'll cut, edit, whatever you do, and then you'll show it. And then if the client doesn't like it, you go right back to step one. So how many iterations does it usually take?
Well, see, that's while technically what you're saying is correct. That's where partnerships with ad agencies come into play, right? And if you're working with a great team and a good set of agencies, then a large part of that sort of hygiene is something that they take care of. They curate the project till that point.
Okay, so it's continuous,
right? And also what happens is, and today I personally think there's entire divide between that we're the agency and hence we are creative, you're the client and you're not creative. All that I pretty much out of the window, I think, right? Okay. Everybody has a claim on anything. Everybody's intelligent. Everybody has access to the internet, which makes even more intelligent, and at
least easy for us.
And there are lots of people involved in the process. So what we do as a pretty much, let me just sort of try and sort of do a quick walkthrough of what happens so that you get a sense. Is when we receive a script from the agency, we sort of look at it and we work on its head, and we say that if we sort of build it this way, then it could be more interesting. So we add some value and to the script that comes in, and we pitch it to the agency that, hey, if we do this like that, what do you think? And if they like it, they say great. Then we make sort of what we call as a PPM deck, right, which is a pre-production meeting. So before you begin shooting, you sort of put together, it's like a proposal of sorts. Not a proposal, but it's like a detailed document that outlines every aspect of filmmaking, right? So we tell them, okay, here is what your story is. This is what the storyboard is.
This is the location.
So this is the location, this is the cast, this is the model, and so on and so forth. So every aspect of filmmaking is discussed with the client, right? And if they have any point of views, and that comes up in those meetings, and we sort of thrash it out. And only once that is locked in, is when we move forward in production or filmmaking, right?
So it's not very much iterative.
It's not. It's iterative to the point of view that people are all aligned to what the story is, how it's going to be done, and because we come from advertising and I come from, and my partner, both of us have spent our times in advertising, we know how clients think and how agencies think. So we detail out things as much as possible.
Reduce the chance for surprise as much as possible.
Absolutely,
basically.
absolutely. So that you don't sort of end up at that friction point later, right? So that's what we do, and it's pretty much clean, right? So what really comes out is क्या भाई मैंने ऐसा सोचा था, ऐसा नहीं है that 19 का 20 हो सकता है, मतलब 10 का 20 नहीं होगा.
Well put. Yeah. And on that note, I think we should take a little break before we continue on.
See you on the other side of this break.
Hi, I'm May, and I'm a huge fan of the indie music scene in our country. A scene that's relatively underground, even though it sometimes peeks its head overground. But there's no shortage of talent, and I get the privilege of interviewing some of the most awesome musicians on my show. I've had the likes of Euphoria, Krish Kale, Hardcore, Randolph Correa. I've had singer-songwriters, folk singers, electronic music producers, playback singers, rappers, fusion artists, instrumentalists, classical musicians, and so on. Whether mainstream or not, these people have chosen to release their original music, and these are the people currently shaping the direction in which our music scene is heading. Join me on my show every Monday and tune in to discover the unique talent coming out of India today. You can catch Made in India on your favorite podcasting app or our very own IVM podcast app.
Welcome back to Simplified. Today we have a very special guest in the studio, Mr. Dharam Valia, who's the producer and co-founder of Hungry Films, and we're talking about the journey of how ad films are made. So, Dharam, one question that we had was, along with the people, of course, there's a whole bunch of stuff needed, like equipment needed, and people with special skills needed in this entire process of making ad films. So, who are these people that you work with most often, and what kind of equipment is also used?
And one huge question I've always had is, do you own most of the stuff, be it human resources or equipment, or do you rent it out as and when needed?
Well, I think there's a bit of an evolution happened on that front, because there are two aspects to this evolution. One is technology, and second is skill sets of people who are part of this process. In terms of, and both sort of have fed on to each other. Technology, as everybody know, is pretty much becoming democratic, or has become democratic to the point that anybody can shoot anything with any device that they have.
It's become so democratic that it lost to Trump in the last elections.
Yeah, exactly. And in a sense, today there is, of course, there are special equipments that you need to do specific things, and you would like to shoot with better cameras, but the point is, yes, can it be shot with a phone? Yes, of course it can be, right? Would you want to do it with a phone is another question, right? Because you want your end product to look a certain way, and because it's a creative craft at the end of the day, right? And as ad film making companies are pretty much the only marketing we do is the work that we put out. And so whatever we do, we just put everything, our heart and soul, everything in the work. So that's why we sort of work with the best technicians we possibly can. It's a close group of people because, of course, you get comfort levels with a certain kind of people that you work with, right? Because there are schools of thoughts, and there are behaviors, and because you have to spend time with them on location and meetings, and so because your wavelengths need to match, and you need to have a good vibe essentially.
Right.
Vibe is a big word in filmmaking, right? Because as long as the vibe is good, because there are so many creative subjectivities, right? Filmmaking, like where to place the camera, what frame, what color the costume, it's all subjective. You can question pretty much anything possible, right? But if you have the correct vibe with the people that you're working with, there's collective energy that comes together, and that really creates something special. And you would want to sort of give your extra best when you feel that energy inside you. So that's really, and that's also partly a producer's job, right? To make sure there's no Mr. Grumpy lying around on a set. If you have a point of view, then please say your point of view.
Yeah, egos to be managed.
Exactly. Yeah. Creative people are like children, right? Everybody knows that. Just like Srikeit.
What
Thanks.
about what about when you also frequently you must be working with celebrities, because you see them, their stupid faces in the ad films all the time. So how difficult or easy are they to work with?
Well, they are pretty. We've to be honest, we've not worked too much with celebrities. We've just had like a few brush-ins. The process of working in a celebrity film, on a celebrity film, is always complicated, right? Because there are more amount of people than required who make things complicated. I'll just be honest.
Yeah.
Right?
Just the
Because-
poor celebrity himself.
Yeah,
or herself
मतलब
would be, yeah.
मतलब celebrity के साथ उसके और 150 लोग आ जाते हैं और it becomes like a mime fair, and it's just crazy. It's just, and the sense, so because of all that complexity, which is really not needed.
Yeah.
Right? That guy can land up, he can shoot, finish his job, everybody can be happy, and over and out. But then people make things complicated, and something leads to another, and so you pretty much end up with managing some sort of a chaos or fire or so on and so forth. So that's what happens. Although there have been exceptions, but this is what pretty much happens. But personally, given an option, we would choose a non-celebrity job over a celebrity job.
Fair. In
Personally
your
speaking.
opinion or in your experience, does that make too much of a difference in the final outcome?
I think people in India today know that using celebrities are an immediate crutch, right? It's like a first cut.
You mean the
Chalo
end
isko le
consumer
lo.
themselves? I'm not saying
Yeah,
advertising
the end
people
consumer.
like us.
Well, of course, in certain categories, it's important, right?
Sure.
Like in certain categories, it's important to use
Right.
celebrities and so on and so forth. But there has been enough proof that even in those categories, with good creativity and great writing and great execution in terms of filmmaking, you can outperform.
So you're
Like
saying
tourism is many a times in tourism they use celebrities, right? A lot of people use a big celebrity from that particular state or region or country to promote that country. But then there have also been counter examples. We've been fortunate to work on one of them, and pretty much that's really about it. So I'm not a big celebrity
So
person.
basically, you're saying that people are smart enough to figure out that Kareena Kapoor actually doesn't use an eyeball phone.
Yes, I think so.
or Shah Rukh Khan, a fairness cream. So
Or Amitabh Bachchan, suddenly for each state in the country. It's just
Yeah,
another-
yeah.
So coming back to the equipment, you told us about
Yes,
the people,
yes,
the
yes,
equipment,
yes,
yes. I'm really keen to know about the
Yes, so
equipment.
about the equipment, we really pretty much come to the equipment is after we sort out the software, in the sense
Sure.
that once we know this is the storytelling we want to do.
And that's what you mean by software, right? Not like Premiere Pro.
Yeah, no, not that. Sorry. So once we lock in on this is the storytelling we want to do, this is how we want to do it. Then we come to the point, okay, what equipment do you need to make this happen? Right? Rather than working the other way around, right? Because it's always tempting to work the other way around.
Yeah.
But then it gets complicated if you do it the other way around. Let me just put it this way. So there are different kinds of equipment. There are different kinds of cameras. There are different kinds of lights. Like for example, there was one motorcycle commercial we were doing. We were supposed to shoot in an outdoor location. In the middle of rains in Mumbai, and wherein we needed sun and and so on and so forth. We could not, because we could not take the risk of rains, so we had to create a large set in a closed studio, but it had to look like it's shot outdoor. So we rented a light, right, which is pretty much like what you use in stadiums.
Like floodlights.
Yeah, it's one of the largest light sources. So it's a sun replicator.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
It's that big. And so as I said, now that comes because you want your
Effect
story
or something, yeah.
You want your story to be in the day, and because of some reasons you cannot, and so on and so forth. So there are different kind of cameras, lights, equipments. There are lots of advances in these areas today, right? You can shoot at crazy resolutions, and that keeps sort of getting better day by day. So life has become simple and complicated both at the same time, right? Because technology makes it simple, but we make it complicated by
Also,
sort
it's a huge extra dimension because,
It is.
not knowing that dimension exists might impact your work in a significant way. So,
Yeah,
I guess you
yeah.
need to be abreast with whatever's happening.
Absolutely. The entire digital revolution, and today you have the luxury of recording everything on sort of zeros and ones, if I may. But we don't own any of the equipment.
Okay,
right?
so everything is rented.
Because
even
yes, a lot. Most of the specialist equipment they're extremely expensive, and there are a lot of sort of rich people who have invested in them.
Also, a lot of it would need special operators to operate.
Yes, they do.
So, yeah.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
So when we rent the equipment, it comes with operators, and we also have specialists who know how to work on that equipment.
Just like if you buy MS PowerPoint, you get a planner along with it.
Well
So,
said.
okay, this is just a very
I
curious
wonder what
question.
happened to license copies. Do you get people pirated copies also? You get pirated planners?
I'm very tempted. There are 100 answers.
They are
I
from
have.
IIPM.
Fair enough. There were 100 answers that I had, but I would be burning a lot of bridges if I said the hack. No, but I'm just very curious to know what's the most expensive piece of equipment that you have used or you know of.
Why are you after Dharam's equipment? I don't know.
I don't know. That's, what's the most expensive piece of equipment we have used?
That red camera thing?
Red camera is not that expensive. We've used stuff that's much more expensive than that. So we've used...
I'm guessing the cameras are the most expensive part, right? I'm not talking about the actors or software as...
No, I think not cameras are pretty ubiquitous.
Really?
So they are not very, very expensive.
Even the 4K 120
4K is
FPS.
nothing. Now you're talking about 8K then.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So you're talking about recording at 8Ks and 4K workflows, post-production
Wow.
workflows. So it's all crazy. Pretty much, I think that light would have been, which I spoke about earlier. It's a 1 lakh kilowatt light.
Okay. Wow.
So what costs more, the electricity bill or
no,
renting?
so you have to pay per hour of it being used. So it's pretty crazy.
Wow. Kilowatt. Amazing.
100,000
And think of what would happen if that bulb pops, man. It'll be total. Owner will go into like complete.
Yeah, when that light
depression.
came on, the Let There Be Light had a different sort of. Well,
Oh man. Anyway, so also, I mean, now that you think of, I mean, when we talk of equipment and stuff like that, and we talk about this professional equipment being used, parallelly we are also talking about this entire revolution of people being, all our smartphones now have great capability to do at least amateur filmmaking quite easily, right? So there's this entire parallel revolution going on of people doing pretty decent filmmaking on using just their phones. So, where does that feature? I mean, has that entered anywhere near the ad filmmaking realm?
it has really. And as I said, it's really depending upon what does your storytelling require and demand, right? In fact, one of the projects that we are shooting next week, it requires it's a motorcycle commercial, and it requires us to work with really small cameras, right? Because it's really like shooting like a bike chase sort of a thing, and wherein the camera needs to go narrow, needs to go closer to the action, right? So if you're working with large cameras and large setups, you are not nimble and fast.
Yeah.
Right. So then now this is the reason wherein we said that, we need smaller cameras. So let's work with smaller cameras. So there are lots of professional smaller cameras as well. So we're using a really small camera, smaller than an iPhone, right? To do that job. So it all depends upon, there are feature films being shot on an iPhone. There are Hindi feature films being shot on an iPhone, right? They've already been shot. They've not yet released. There are ads being shot on an iPhone. But then, I mean, do you want your ad to be known because it's shot on an iPhone? Or do you want your ad to be known because of what it's trying to say? Or
Basically, do you want to sell or do you want to get a case study? That's the question. I think Mercedes was one of those guys who actually famously said that this we shot this on an iPhone, and they wanted to make that statement that it's possible to.
There are lots of them. There are lots of them. There are Apple commercials and Mercedes and so on.
Apple,
and so
obviously,
forth.
for obvious reasons.
Yeah. So, I mean, in the sense, I don't see it as something novel. I mean, if it's intrinsic to the storytelling,
Yeah, fair enough.
then maybe yes, right? Like a lot of independent filmmakers internationally shoot on iPhones, and A lot of them at Sundance, and there's a particular film called Tangerine. If you haven't seen, watch it. Spectacular.
Entirely shot on an iPhone.
I have a slightly related question to what Srikeit said, not so much about the hardware that's being used. You walked us through the entire process of how an ad film is done, and it's a fairly involved process, and I'm assuming it takes a lot of time. Not even accounting for client eccentricities, which might take weeks and weeks and weeks. But we are increasingly moving to a time where turnaround times are extremely important, not because there's a client deadline or a product launch, but because that moment might pass. Like, for instance, if a meme is doing the rounds today, if you don't leverage on it by, say, 4 or 6 p.m. today, the time has passed. One of my favorite quotes from the world of marketing was by Coke's ex-VP of marketing, who had this fantastic line that just said, "Speed trumps perfection." I thought that was a fantastic, 3 words. In an era like that, and we are only going to see more of this happening, this traditional process that you outlined, how relevant is it, or how quickly can, or how equipped is an agency like yours or the industry itself for a change? How adaptable is it to something like this?
See, it's pretty much adaptable. It's in fact pretty much, it's extremely adaptable because it's very modular, right? It's about you can short circuit the processes, you can eliminate certain processes also if need be, right? If it's a completely animated commercial, then you don't need to shoot anything.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
And today, technology allows you to do so many things, and so on and so forth. But then, again, the question comes to the point that what is it that you want to say, and what you want to say, does this technique allow you to sort of say it in a certain way, right? But the point is, if the script is, my reference point is simple, मतलब ताजमहल तो 2 दिन में बन नहीं सकता है, तो तुम अगर ताजमहल का रिक्वेस्ट डालोगे और बोले नहीं 2 दिन में दे दो, तो बॉस अपने से तो नहीं होगा. So it's pretty much that, right? There are some things I can give you the first stone on the entry step of Taj Mahal in 2 days maybe, but not the full piece, right? Man, that's how it is. Good things take time to execute, and to each his own, really.
Fair enough. And the modern day equivalent of chopping off the laborer's hands is signing an NDA. So I think we should take a little break.
On that monumental note, let's take a little bit of a break, and we'll be back in a moment. Yeah, right after this.
Hi, I'm Amit Verma, the host of the weekly podcast, The Seen and the Unseen. In my show, I examine the seen effects and the unintended consequences of public policy and private action. I show how policies meant to help the poor often end up hurting the poor. I've done episodes so far on demonetization, GST, surgical strikes, immigration and MRP. And I will continue my forensic assault on the truth in the weeks to come.
Catch the show every Monday on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you prefer. Or visit seenunseen.in for all the latest updates.
Welcome back to Simplified. We're in conversation with Dharam Valia, founder and producer of Hungry Films.
Well done.
Simplified is all on my mind right now. Yeah. But anyway,
this reminds me of when you fly. Okay, it really disconcerts me. So you go on the flight to Bangalore, and the captain comes down to your captain, Mr. Singh. We are flying.
Sounds just like that most of the time.
Yeah, and we are flying to, and he's like going through his bloody pages, flying to Bangalore. Dude, you don't even know.
He's like, पहले ocean में उतर जाते हैं, फिर देखते हैं किधर जाना है.
Yeah, so Hungry Films.
Yes. And before Hungry Films happened, of course, Dharam, you held multiple roles in the ad industry, mainline servicing, digital strategy, and now an ad filmmaker. Do let us know, do tell us how this career path has panned out for you.
I spent most of my time in advertising, about I think 18 odd years.
Wow.
I did my MBA and then, just as all MBAs do, I sort of stumbled upon a summer internship in an agency, and those are the times where computers were just about, so there were like 2 computers in one office, like that, those sort of times, And at that time, presentations were done on
OHP.
on OHPs and sliders. I don't know if many of you.
Yes, of course. I went to a government engineering college. I would know.
Correct. And I remember my boss used to sort of write 6. How you get PowerPoint 6 a page printouts? So he actually used to take an empty page, make 6 squares, and write buttons like on each of those slides, and used to give me, and then it was my job. But I got hired because I knew PowerPoint. Wow. That's how I got my first job, and I knew how to make a chart in PowerPoint.
You're the original planner.
So yes, so I got hired purely because of that skill of mine. And one thing led to another, and I spent enough time on advertising. In my first agency, I spent 5 years. And unfortunately or fortunately, I never had any bosses in those 5 years. So I was pretty much on my own, reporting to the people wearing the ties.
And who had no clue what you were doing.
And I said, भाई इसका कुछ बना दो यार, PowerPoint कुछ बना दो. भाई दो चलो. And another interesting part, because I used to work on an alcohol brand, that agency used to burn, and they had to do dipsticks. So and research. So one of the research was को एक काम करो, तुम जाओ पब में जाओ, बॉम्बे के 4-5 पब में जाओ रोज शाम को, ये लो पैसे, or order a drink when you go there, and you have to check whether the alcohol they serve is authentic or not. So I had like one job. Yeah, man. So I thought this is a damn good gig. I know it's not paying money, but let's go for it. So I partied for a few months there, and free of cost, and I made decks, and that's how the journey started. And one thing led to another. And I spent time in SSCNB Lintas, which was a part of Lintas at that time, and then McCann, and then Ogilvy. And then I spent about 8 years in Ogilvy, and after having done so much time in advertising, and you pretty much reach a certain saturity point, and you wonder what next, and sort of many times advertising pushes you to that point, and although Ogilvy is a great place and great people.
Was it because of these two guys that you can say the truth, it won't come on the...
Well, partly yes, because unfortunately I had one of them, and that guilt, I couldn't sleep at night, and it just drove me mad. So the thing is, what I realized, I really asked myself when I was working in the agency, that what excited me the most still in advertising. Because when I joined advertising, I was really excited going to work, right? Because it is interesting and exciting. It's actually the most exciting job you can do. And that I still believe that, the kind of things that you experience and learn, and the shit that sort of you encounter. And it's crazy, it's fun. Of course, it's chaotic.
It's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody, but it is genuinely the most fun you can have while earning some money as well, right?
Some being the operator.
That's what I said. That's what I said. And I still believe that. But, when you do that for about 15 plus years, then you start wondering, okay, both fun ho gaya abhi. So when I asked myself what next and what excited me most about advertising was the point of creation of an idea, right? That it starts off with a problem that, here we want to sell X, and there is an interesting way somebody down the line or in a cabin or somebody somewhere or in the loo thinks that, okay, here's an idea, and that pretty much, that one little thing, it rallies everybody, right? It unifies everybody, and so everybody comes together and says, you know what, let's go bed. And that creation point was the one which was most exciting in advertising. It still is, but it's become complicated now, is what I think, right? Because there are too many people doing things which they're not supposed to, and it could have been done with people half.
You know who you are.
So the point is, and that joy of either discovering that idea or either rallying that idea diminished again and again in an agency. And so when I saw what could be, and the next point which I discovered was interesting, when that idea really was given body and shape. when it converted into
Yeah.
some point of execution.
Translating from Word doc into...
Exactly, whether it's a film or whether it's something
Yeah, yeah.
else, or now Indian advertising is largely film centric, is ad film centric. So ads, mostly what you think is ultimately gets transpired into an ad or a commercial. So that was the next point that excited me. And of course, while you're in advertising, you experience a lot of it on different projects. So I watched it. It's like you can't like learn swimming while you're watching the water, right? You have to dive in.
You have to dive in.
at
So
some point.
so I said, fuck it, let's just dive in, you know. So that's how the entire thing
So
happened.
another question I've been dying to ask
Yes.
is...
Please don't die though.
I'm not planning. I want to die of old age, actually. Yeah, so it's a long time. So, what, like, you know, like all creative impulses, you run dry every now and then. So, how do you get your mojo back? So, what inspires you? What do you like? Where do you
that's
find
where-
inspiration? Yeah.
No, interesting question. That's where my personal hobbies come in, and one thing that's been a constant is I really love movies. There was a time when I used to watch 4 or 5 movies a week. And I used to love watching a lot of international advertising as well, but that sort of migrated to movies. And today the world of the kind of movies that are being made, the kind of stories that are being told, it's so fascinating. I just find that every time I go back to the world of movies, it's just you get a new hit. Right now, whether it's a feature film or whether it's a Netflix series or whether it's a Amazon special or whatever it is, there is so much interesting stuff being done that pretty much, at least for me, I don't know about others, but it pretty much kills the bad karma out, you know, for me. And I just sort of get consumed by it and said, this is awesome. And whether you get to make something as awesome or not is irrespective. It's just the fact that you get to consume it in the way it's being presented to you, right?
Yeah.
It's an experience which not many people savor it nicely, right? Like, I mean, you shouldn't be watching shit on your mobile phone, right?
One thing can just inspire something else in a totally different field. Just the way something's narrated
that's
in
massive. That's a big
yeah.
one, right? Now, and you know, there's a filmmaker called Jim Jarmusch who said that you can steal from everything every time, and stealing, there's nothing wrong with stealing, right? That's the evolution of mankind. That's how mankind has evolved.
And the good part of this is that you don't steal consciously. So that's the beauty of it.
And,
it's only after you created something. Yeah.
Right. So because the point is, at least for me, what I've observed about myself, I just consume so many different things, whether it's a series or a movie or a whatever, whether it's a Facebook video. You consume interesting, and it resides in some good stuff, resides in some part of your brain, right? And tomorrow, as a producer, when I'm solving some problem,
It just pops.
I said, "Hare, this plus that is equal to that," right? So that's those are the exciting parts of
And
your
in fact,
day,
that's probably the biggest kick of the whole thing.
Exactly. That you've had the fortune of consuming so much interesting stuff, and you get to apply it, and what better than that?
Talking back to the inception of Hungry, firstly, the name Hungry, where did it come from?
Well, it
Just like one late night in advertising, nobody's delivering.
well,
they're
yeah.
hungry.
I love food a
Nobody's
lot.
delivering food, is it?
I love food a lot. I just when we were getting around to sort of naming it, I definitely didn't want to sort of go into that intelligent, pretentious sort of names. I'm not a big fan of any of those. I personally prefer names which are simple yet have deeper meanings. Like, for example, there's an agency in London called Mother. I love that name, you know. It's a great name for an ad agency, right? It's got such great meanings when you... Just that word, it's so evocative, and it just sort of... different people can interpret in different ways. So that's how I thought that, you know, if I have to go down that road, what's that word that works for me? And somehow, I don't know where and what and how, but this word stuck in, and sort of it stayed with me.
And also, I mean, among the many creations, some of the most famous being the MP Tourism's Toys ad and Skoda, Tata Salt. Among all of these pieces of work, I won't ask you your favorite because it might be a difficult thing to ask, but which one did you have most fun making?
Fun is a subjective word. But, well, because each project has its moments, right? Each thing has its moments. But wherein you really sort of feel good at a certain point of time in the process, that many a times, personally for me, music is that one area in that process. I love music, and because many a times when you have the edit in place, right? Because what happens is you shoot the commercial, you edit it to the duration that you like, and so it's a rough edit, what we call as the offline edit. You have the offline, and the offline edit doesn't have music, right? It's like a dry. It's like a driver. It's like a PowerPoint presentation without formatting. And so it's a dry sort of thing of what you want to say, and then that's when we sort of get into the music as a process, and how the same piece of content is sort of it comes to life when there is music applied to it. It's a transformational sort of a process. So for me, it's always extremely exciting to get into music, and we've luckily had the good fortune of working with great music directors across all our work, and MP was one of them. So the music for MP was one of those highlight moments. And then
who made the music for that?
So there's a music director called Shubhajit Mukherjee. So we worked with him, and not many people know it's a purely a cappella sort of a soundtrack. There are no instruments that at all in that commercial. It's purely all vocals and just one singer, one young singer girl, and that's about it. Apart from MP, there's another series of commercials that we had done long ago for Fevikwik. So they were 5-second commercials, right? We had done 22 of them.
I remember this.
Yeah. And I remember we wanted to use children's voices, right? We wanted children to say certain things, that A for aeroplane, F for Fevikwik, for example. And that we had like a full series, A, B, C, D, F, G, X, Y, Z. So we want to work with children, and we want to work with really young children. And with children, it gets extremely complicated when you're, especially in audio dubs. And I'm sure your engineers
in life
will
in
know
general
that.
Also.
Well, yeah.
Aeroplanes and everything.
Yeah, it does. But especially in audio dubs, it gets extremely complicated because they have like really small attention spans, and especially if you go really young. So we wanted to go like 3 years and all. 3 years old child is very complicated. So finally we got somebody, and we got him to the studio, the boy, and so I coaxed him and I said, what are X, Y, Z, and you have to say this, and this way. And so he went inside, and so he started saying something. And then suddenly he stopped in between. And so from feedback we are saying, what happened, beta? What happened? Kya ho gaya? So nahi, mujhe gana hai. So there are like 8 people standing outside, like 3 people from the agency and us and the client and all. But now this kid wants to sing, so nobody has any choice. He says, okay, galo. So then he sings the full song. Everybody is waiting.
It's amazing how only a kid and the CEO can possibly get away.
Yeah. And also that kid got away because that kid was my son. I couldn't do anything about it.
Sir, please remove that mic and drop it. My favorite ad of yours.
That was a lot of fun.
My favorite ad made by Hungry. You know how sometimes when you say my favorite music by a certain band is like obscure gem, no? Like that. So my favorite.
I know Deepak. What Deepak is going to
say. It's a very, very smoked up series.
It is.
For Mentos, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
It was
Talking Rooster, the Papa Sorry series.
That was clearly the most lateral of what we've done. Wherein I don't know what the agency was thinking.
Try to explain it.
So the agency came to us with an idea that we should do something, and we said, why don't we film two chickens talking.
I want to know
And
what
I think it just
led up to
came
that.
out as a joke, and then somebody took it seriously. And then we said, "Fuck, now we have to do it. How the fuck are we going to do it?" So I remember then we sort of got about 10-15 chickens. And I remember we had a small... it was complicated because I remember we had a small set in Film City, and so what you do, say you can't get chickens to act, right? So what you do is you give them stimulus to look in a certain way and open their mouth and do things. And so we were recording with 7 cameras and we were filming chickens in different angles all day.
This is what your professional life has led to.
Yeah, imagine. And we're just all waiting for like a small chick or that fucking rooster to look in a certain way. Some लोग गाली दे रहे Sorry, but and that was crazy. So we filmed it, and then we edited, and then we all together wrote the script on it.
So shooting came first, and then
that was one of the rare processes
where the shooting
wherein
happened first.
we shot the thing first, and then it was
So
edited.
basically, the rooster dictated the script. Like the rooster did something,
So
and
this
then
is-
you wrote the script
So
on that
actually,
basis.
shooting came first, and then script is rooster-fitted.
So this
Yeah.
this is the classical chicken and egg problem solved. The chicken came first.
I think I have one last question, Dharam. In your mind, what is a good ad film supposed to do? Yeah, that's so many years of
actually the
advertising
answer is very
experience.
simple. The answer is it's the job of a ad commercial is either to educate you about a product or sell you a certain or make you think about a certain brand or a product in a certain way. And if a commercial manages to do that successfully by making it entertaining, actually entertaining is not the best word, but rewarding is rewarding, right? Wherein you feel or you sense something new when you see it, right? That this is interesting. If then I think that's a good benchmark, because there is so much of stuff being done today. Because your commercial is not competing with other commercials, it's competing with what Netflix is producing next. So it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's the amount of stuff that it's swimming upstream. It's madness. So really, if you really end up doing these two things, and I think you pretty much dry home.
One last thing, again, the second last question from my side. Most of the people who listen to this show don't work in advertising. As a guy who makes the actual films, would you have any, and I know this is a slightly vague term to use, tips for people when they're watching ads, purely to, like when you put together an ad, when you see that final product, you see the 3,000 things that made it happen. You know that this light, what looks like a natural sun is actually light which would have a story behind it. This expression of a person turning back will have a story behind it. What are these little cues that people could possibly look out for when they watch an ad?
Well, it's to be honest, Deepak, it's something. See, a lot of creators have idiosyncrasies in terms of ये भी करते हैं, वो भी करते हैं, ये भी detailing करते हैं, वो भी detailing करते हैं. But those small little things that you do, we don't end up doing it because we want people to pick on it. If they pick on it, great, right? But the idea is not really to pick on it. But what it does, those small little things, they have like a molecular effect on the larger feel, right? Because like 20 small things then suddenly make you feel
like a piece of music.
Absolutely,
You can make the
right?
same thing.
So there is
sad
there
or
is like
happy.
a fifth, there's like 24th layer of some trombone somewhere, right? Right? You might not hear it, but if it's not there, it might be missing somewhere.
Molecular gastronomy was what I was going for, but music is
So
as good an example.
it's really like that, right? So there is a lot of nuances that happen in advertising, right? But the job of nuancing is really to make the end product feel better, more rounded, more enjoyable, more rewarding. And on repeat viewing, if you can catch something, when you watch the same ad for the 50th time and you're abusing band karo yaar. So matlab, how to stop that is the answer to your...
People can please interpret what happened behind that beep.
Yes. So
yeah.
on that very, very profound note. Thank you so much, Dharam, for gracing our tiny little podcast here, and also for making such beautiful ads and for positively impacting so many lives across the industry, especially a couple of ours. So thank you so much for coming on, and I hope you've enjoyed your time here on Simplified with Dharam, learned a bit about how this ad filmmaking process works and what goes into making those 30-second annoyances that interrupt your interrupt your regularly scheduled programming. So that's all from us on Simplified, and thank you so much. See you in a fortnight.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Sorry to say, but there's been a slight delay due to the apocalypse having suddenly begun. As you can see, there's death, destruction, and chaos taking place all around us. But don't you worry, food and drinks will be served shortly, and I would recommend checking out IVM Podcasts to get some of your favorite Indian podcasts. We'll keep you going till this whole thing blows over. Thank you.